Hi, welcome back to Words Worth Saying. My name's Amy Dean, and this is a space where people come to share their two most important life lessons. Today I have with me Mark Rann. Mark, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So I'm really looking forward to hearing Mark's life lessons. But first of all, Mark, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm not really that interesting, I don't think. I work in social housing. I run a comedy club. I like to get involved with the community. I've spent a few years living around the world. I have 2 children and a wife.
And you think that's not interesting?
No, it doesn't feel. It feels fairly run of the mill, to be honest.
Oh well, God, I don't know many people who run comedy clubs and have a full-time job and get involved in local community.
I think it's important.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Well done you. We don't have time to go into all of that today, but tell us what your first life lesson is.
My first life lesson is probably how the comedy club came about. It's about always doing something different. Never, don't stand still. It's just go out there and change something about your routine and your life. Just embrace something different and just go for it. Whether you know about it or not, just do it.
And that's obviously something you've done in your life.
Well, the comedy club is a prime example. I'd never run a club. I don't know anything about comedy. I didn't know any comedians. But me and my next door neighbour quite liked the idea of a night out that didn't involve going to the pub. So we just kind of had a conversation, said, should we do it? We went, yeah, we know nothing about it. Yeah, why not? And 5 years later, here we are.
Oh my goodness, 5 years on.
Yeah.
And so how did that start?
It started with blind panic, to be honest. We realised that we didn't know any comedians. We had no idea how to run a club of any description. And I just put a note out on Facebook to any of my friends saying, anyone know any comedians? And it turns out one of my friends on Facebook actually had an agency that dealt with comedians. And so we worked with him initially. And then we very quickly realised that what we wanted to do is we wanted to have sole charge of booking all the comedians, because we felt in order to be honest about what we were putting on the stage, we had to know and we had to make those decisions ourselves. We couldn't just have an agency go, right, there you go, you do it.
Yes.
And yeah, it was very important to us.
So if somebody were thinking about going out there and doing something different, what would be your advice to them?
Whatever it is, just do it. Just do it. And no matter how uncomfortable it may feel, if you know nothing about it, just give it a go. Because you know what, you might give 20 things a go, and then one of them will just come and you go, right, that's the one, done. And it's so interesting and challenging to try different things all the time, and it makes life interesting.
What do you think it is that might stop people from doing those things?
I think fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
But actually, you can turn that fear around and channel it in a different way. Because don't be scared. Think of it as an opportunity. Yeah. There's always something out there that could be really interesting, and just give it a go.
Yeah. It's interesting because as a coach, I see a lot of people embracing ideas and making them happen. And sometimes looking at something, like you say, it's too big almost. I'm terrified of it. I couldn't possibly do that. But when you just break it down and say, okay, what's the first step? What would be the first step if I were to do that? And then you're on your way.
Absolutely. It's getting over that initial fear. It's just try something different, because actually almost anything is a process, and all you've got to do is figure out what the first step in that process is. And once you hit step 1, then you look at step 2 and you go, oh, okay, and then before you know it, you're almost there.
Yes. So it's like sort of baby steps.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you try and embrace the whole thing in one hit, I think you just go, oh no, and it would be overwhelming. But one step at a time,
and you can really make things happen.
Actually, I believe you can. I believe that all of us have it within us to make changes, and little changes around create a big change in your environment. So yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah, with that, I love that too. The idea that yes, we can. You know, there's the Bob the Builder thing, isn't it? yes, you can.
That's very true. But actually, it's true. Yes, you can. I mean, there will always be people who tell you can't, and those people are just not worth listening to. Don't tell me why you can't. Tell me why you can.
Yeah.
And I do this a lot in my day job. We look at processes and we say, okay, let's not find a reason why we can't do that. Yeah. Let's find a reason why we can do it, and just change is really important. If you don't change and evolve, then I think you die out.
Yes. Yeah, so really, I suppose, sort of maintaining some sort of energy in your life where you're taking on new things and exploring new ideas. And
oh, it can take you into the most wonderful avenues, and it takes you down paths that you would never have dreamed of when you started, and it actually opens up so many other opportunities. It's wonderful. It's really, really fulfilling.
I get that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so what's lesson number 2?
Lesson number 2 is for me, it's about community, and we all say that we're very busy and we don't have time. We don't have time. We do have time. Give a little bit back. That's really it. Give a little bit back, even if it's 2 hours a week. And I don't care who you are. Everyone's got 2 hours of their week. They can give up on social media a little bit, but do something back for the community. And actually, the more you give back into the community, the more rewarding it becomes for yourself. Yeah. So it's selfish in a kind of generous way, but definitely it's about community and getting involved.
When did you first learn that?
Funny enough, when I moved to Chesham, that was about 10 years ago. It hit me like a brick. I'd come from London where I hardly knew my neighbours, and I moved into the house, and the next door neighbours on the first day that we moved in came round with an apple pie. Something I've never forgotten that. And we were made to feel so welcome, and then all of a sudden you're in this community where people welcomed you in, and I saw opportunities everywhere to get involved. Something that you don't have in London. I think we as human beings, we crave community and we crave company and we want to help each other and be part of something. But in the big cities, we don't really know how to do that. And I think they've lost that ability. So you come to smaller towns where the options are available to you, and all of a sudden you go, wow, yeah, I can do this. And Chesham is a wonderful place for community. There's so much going on. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's very true. Chesham is in Buckinghamshire, where Mark and I both live. Interestingly, my grandmother used to tell a similar story, because she was evacuated to Chesham during the war from London, and she said that the people in Chesham were so kind and so welcoming that she always wanted to give something back to the community, and she ultimately got involved with local council. She became mayor at one point, but right at the end of her life, she used to cook for the old people, she used to call them. I think half of them were younger than her, actually. But that's one of the things that she did, and she continued to do that throughout her life, was to give back to the community that had welcomed her in the same way that you're describing.
It's so satisfying, and actually spiritually it's very rewarding for as an individual to kind of just do something that's not for you. You know, whether it's organising a fundraising event or there's a Christmas lunch held in Chesham where the old folk who are on their own are looked after, and you know, whether you volunteer to drive them around and take them to or from, whatever it is, it doesn't take much of your time, and actually it's quite selfish that the reason I do it. It makes me feel great, and if you know, I think it's a really nice thing to do. Yeah.
And it's a good time of year, actually. It's we're approaching Christmas now. I don't know where it is in your world, what time of year it is, but at the moment we're at the beginning of December, and there are lots of opportunities to give back in a community way around Christmas time.
Absolutely. There's stuff like there's the Chiltern Toy Bank, which I think is wonderful.
Oh, yes.
Who hasn't got some spare toys in their house that they couldn't just go and donate? And there are these toy banks all over the country, all over the world, food banks, whatever. Just go out and do something for someone else.
I always remember that from Blue Peter as children. Do you remember you used to fill a shoebox with stuff and send it off to Blue Peter?
They still do that. They still do that. Yeah, no, my kids in their school, they do a shoebox every year, and they send it off with toys and bits and pieces. And you know, it's teaching kids from a very early age that actually we are incredibly privileged in where we live and the lifestyles that we live, and actually not everyone is as lucky as we are. And I kind of feel we really ought to reach out to those other people and help them as much as we possibly can, and always remember that we're very privileged. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's just go back. Your 2 lessons are: number 1?
Number 1 is do something different.
Do something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And number 2?
Get involved. In the community.
Get involved with the community. Yeah. Oh, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your life lessons.
My pleasure.
We'll be back again. Look out for the next video, and get involved and do something different.